Did it work? Oh, what just happened there?
I don't see anything on my on this screen.
Nothing at all?
It says broadcast 1.
Oh, I didn't hear anything either.
Oh, I heard the.
Well, I heard it coming through my earphones. My camera's all messed up for some reason. You're not seeing anything. Hold on.
Take one.
That's all right. We're gonna restart in a second, so don't worry about it. I will.
Don't go anywhere.
You can see it. Don't go anywhere. I just changed. Why on earth would this go back to the way it was? That's just weird. Did somebody turn a light off? There's no reason this thing should be this dark.
Do you want that light on?
Nah, that one usually just sends weird shadows everywhere. I don't like that. Pardon us while we make the sausage. What?
Sausage.
Yeah, they're seeing how the sausage gets made? No? Okay.
You lost me.
No, it's like you see how the sausage gets made. It's like you look behind the scenes to see how your sausage gets made.
Not something I ever thought about.
Yeah. This is not a pre-packaged thing. They're watching us grind up the animal bits and package them. Yeah, I don't know why that thing didn't play, and I don't know why my screen's so dark. Why are you smirking on screen? Oh, because you're smirking in real life, too. All right, well... just a sec.
Hey. I like that little thing at the end.
You do?
Nice.
I like it too, thank you. Hello and welcome back to another show with Matt and Joe. We are finally back. I'm having a heck of a time tonight. We're finally back in the basement.
Yay.
Where it is not deadly with poisonous mold spores and toxins and whatever other buzzwords I can throw out there to make it sound scary. That is not the case anymore, at least. That's what my air filter says. So we're happy to be back after last week's issues. No issues this week. We do have some very fun topics for tonight. Right, Joe?
Oh, yes.
Let's see. The movements of the words in the title look inspired by HQ's savage questions. Not inspired by, but probably just as much effort put into them. We'll go with that.
Do you ever see like people respond to various comments with like Facebook group names?
No. Why would people do that?
I don't know. Seems to be a cultural thing. Anyway, that last comment there brought to mind the one that's like, that sounds weirdly specific, but okay.
Okay.
Hey, your screen looks brighter. I mean,
my camera.
your
Yeah,
camera
I
looks
fixed
brighter.
it. I sort of fixed it.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have taken what it took, but it did.
Turn up the contrast a tad, and
little
you'd be
bit.
golden.
So we're going to be talking about the national conversation that hit Facebook this week, and I saw it creeping up and was like, wow, this thing has become quite popular. And then it just took over all conversation. And when there's that much arguing on Facebook, I have a really hard time not just shutting it off. As I've mentioned before, I have moved Facebook off of the home screen on my phone, so I don't get those little red circles going. Somebody's trying to talk to you. Somebody's
like
commented.
That.
Hold on. Somebody's commented on. Somebody commented on a thing that you commented on. I don't get any of those, so I only see Facebook notifications when I want to, which is healthy because it's hard not to get sucked in. So we're going to be talking about that immigration families border issue, but more specifically about the actual conversations themselves. There's a lot of dishonest conversation happening and a lot of fear-mongering, legitimate or not. A lot of things that are not helping the conversation. So we're going to go and talk about some of those things. Being held hostage. Why did you try to cross into Mexico and then come back? That's what you get. That's what you get. All right. So we're going to be talking about a couple of other things. There is the title of the show today. Trump announced that he's played enough video games that he has realized and seen enough movies that it is vitally important that we have Space Marines in space. If you've ever seen StarCraft, Space Marines, they are the most important part of terra firma's defense. He might know something we don't, that like the Zerg are on their way. And he's like, we need bunkers, we need sea shanks, and we need Space Marines.
Zerg Rush.
Yeah, Zergling Rush. Here is a quick story from space.com. Of all people to comment on this, let's get the words of the actual space people. Trump's Space Force push reopens arguments about military in space. Were there ever arguments about military in space? The only argument I would ever have is when.
Well, the idea of space should be a peaceful area of international cooperation, that we shouldn't be fighting wars up there.
Really, though? Someone's going to start a war there. I mean, it'd be great if the whole planet was a let's not war place, but there are people, once they get in space, like the Zerg, they're gonna try and use that as an advantage. You want to
it's like Antarctica.
Exactly. Except Antarctica doesn't exist.
What are you talking about?
We've talked about this on the show. How were you not red-pilled on the flat Earth thing? President Donald Trump's call this week that to create a sixth branch of the U.S. military, which he called the Space Force. So well. That's about as creative a title as Star Wars. You just accept that as a kid, but you think about it, it's like Star Wars. It may as well just be called, like, Space Battle.
Well, it was going to be called something really
Astro
boring,
Combat.
like The Journal of the Wills. No one would have watched it then.
I would have watched it. Star Wars.
You weren't around when it first came out.
I still would have watched it eventually. What kind of insect is this? It looks predatory. This has reopened a wider debate about whether such a movie...
Such a movie?
I've got Hollywood on the brain. Is such a movie necessary to better manage military space activities? Is this move necessary? While the idea of a separate space-focused military branch is not new, Trump's surprise announcement caused a... Oh, that's going to get so irritating. I don't think... It's not moving around in fly fashion.
I'm sorry.
Oh, look, a fly.
Don't let it distract you.
That's not gonna work. I appreciate the positive affirmations.
Don't think of elephants.
Yeah. I just thought of a pink elephant. Why
They're
is
remaking
that?
Dumbo.
Yeah, Trump's surprise announcement caused a buzz on social media and news outlets. People are not talking about this. This is a bad time.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Yeah.
did you see there was a campaign to remake the Last Jedi?
What? Remake it? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, technically, if you got enough signatures, the White House would like. Whitehouse.gov, they have those petitions you can sign that are like, make people do things. Isn't that a thing? I feel like that's a thing.
They did a campaign where people pledged up to, the combined pledges were like 11 million, but
that's not enough to make a movie.
A lot of them were
that's not
fictitious.
enough to make a movie.
Yeah, but director Ryan Johnson actually responded on Twitter.
Oh, good. What did he say?
I will bring it up for you. Here it is.
That's all right. I wasn't done with this topic anyway. Our team of producers is offering to cover the budget for a remake of The Last Jedi in order to save Star Wars. Share this and spread the word. Let these people know you want this. This isn't a joke. We're ready to have the conversation now. Remake The Last Jedi. Hashtag Star Wars. I am
just thought I'd throw that in.
Wars. Please, 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 please actually happen. Please, 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 please. Boy, that is some confidence that it wouldn't turn out better. Well, why do you think he said it that way? Obviously, that's facetious. Sort of like
to see them.
I'd like to see you try. Yeah, that's all right.
It's funny.
Why do you think that? Do you think he thinks he did a good job?
Yes.
Yes, of course he does.
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
he says in the article that he does.
He has yet to apologize for that movie. I'm just saying.
He's not going to.
No, of course not. All right, so here are some quotes from Trump about this announcement. When it comes to defending America, it is not enough to merely have an American presence in space. We must have American dominance in space. Trump said in a speech before a meeting of the National Space Council at the White House Monday, June 18th. I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and Pentagon to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the sixth branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement. He said. That was not That was not editorial. He said that. As sixth branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement as he looks back and forth, right? For positive affirmations. Yes, we're going to have the Air Force. We're going to have the Space Force. Separate. He didn't really say that. This has to be a joke. Separate but equal. No. No. Separate. Okay. Am I thinking of something else, or is that a loaded term?
Well, I mean, who's talking? He says all sorts of things. I am not.
Okay.
I would not,
separate but equal.
he could say anything. I would not be surprised.
All right. Here we go. Here we go. Separate but equal was a legal doctrine in United States constitutional law according to which racial segregation did not violate the 14th Amendment in the United States, adopted during the Reconstruction era, which guaranteed equal protection under the law to all citizens. Under the doctrine, as long as the facilities provided to each race were equal, state and local governments could require the service of facilities, public accommodations, housing, medical care, education, employment, and transportation to be segregated by race, which was already the case throughout the former Confederacy. I've only ever heard that term used negative in that context. Separate but equal, not a good thing. That's not. There's no positive link to separate but equal. Anyhow, did that ring a bell for you? No. Oh, maybe it's just me. Yeah. He continued. It's going to be something so important. Trump then directed a comment at the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph Dunford. General Dunford, if you would carry that assignment out, I would be very greatly honored. Also, which assignment? What's just to make it, or to go into space, to be a space marine? I don't know. Maybe he's going to be the first general to lead the Space Marines, Space Force. First FaceTime Marines later. Yes, once there's something to fight over, we will have war in space. War in space. Oh jeez, I just closed it. So that's fun. So that announcement, did you see when that announcement came out?
Which one? The space?
June 18th. Do you know how many days ago that was? 3 days ago. That's kind of a crazy thing to suddenly be like, hey, we're gonna start putting Marines in space.
I thought I heard about it before that.
Well, he probably announced that it was gonna happen, but this specific conference about it.
Oh.
When was the actual day it was announced? Space Force announcement. Just the timing of this seems to be, let's see, 3 days ago, 3 days ago, 1 day ago, 3 days ago. 3 2. I can't find mention of it more than 3 days ago.
What?
Military. It's official. Trump announced the Space Force. Yes, President Donald speaks during a meeting June 18th where he announced it. I'm pretty sure he announced it just a couple of days ago. Yeah. A lot happens every day. The whole world is different in 24 hours. So this is like right when the thing at the border was getting heated, hot and heavy. And he's like, military in space, though. Anybody? You want to meme something, meme that? Or sorry, as he's doing here. And the picture. Oh, you all can't see that.
Nope.
See? This is Trump. That's I do a pretty good Trump with the hands thing. He's doing it there. Every part of the world and the universe. It's all America. All right. I don't think he said that. He probably said something like that. But 3 days ago, quite a thing to just randomly announce like that, considering all of the other stuff going on right now. Do you remember what the big buzz was about a week ago? It wasn't kids at the border. What was it?
A week ago?
Google it. What on earth happened a week ago? North Korea.
I was actually
North Korea.
Facebooking it.
Yeah. Do you remember? He was like, hey, I'm going to sit down with Kim Jong-un and talk about how things should be better between our countries and you shouldn't have nuclear bombs and maybe we won't do war games with South Korea and maybe we can come to some sort of resolution where we don't bomb each other. And then like 2 days after that, people are like, but kids at the border though, and he's like, Space Force! You know, it's like a war for your attention. You know? Like, what's really interesting is you go back through the archives of, like, Wall Street Journal. Go back a week, go back a month, go back 6 months, go back a year. You won't recognize the things that they were like, you won't believe it's the end of the world. And then a couple days later, but this, too, is the end of the world. You know what else came out a couple of days ago? Oh, let's see. When was that? A week ago. You know what came out a week ago? The IG report, Inspector General, talking about all the problems he found with the Hillary Clinton email investigation and all the things that Comey did wrong that should be further investigated, and the texts from Paul Manafort that should have been given to Congress but weren't for some reason. And all of this dirt was dug up to show that that whole case was handled in a very suspicious way. That was his report saying, we're not finding great things. And then, did you hear about that? It's probably all over Facebook. Everybody saying, hey, that thing from last year and the year before about Hillary Clinton.
If it did, I just ignored it.
No, it wasn't all over Facebook because everybody was talking about the border controversy instead. So there wasn't any buzz about it, which there probably should have been considering it was kind of a big deal. Who was it? I think I don't want to get names wrong. I think it was Paul Manafort who was an FBI not officer, what do they call it? Agent, who had said in text messages that he would use the FBI to make sure that Trump didn't become president. And after he became president, he was somehow, this guy, a very anti-Trump guy, was put at a very high position in the Trump-Russia investigation and was quoted on his text messages as saying, I will do everything I can to make sure Trump gets impeached. Struck! Jeez. I'm like, Paul Manafort is not the right guy. I'm looking right at the thing, scanning it, and I can't find it. Thank you. Peter Strzok? Maybe that's why. Strzok was. Yes. So anyway, lots of crazy stuff. But I haven't heard as much about that for some reason. Even though this is new news, and the things at the border are not new news. Not that they're not important, but they're not new news. So some might say, suddenly being really, really interested in this problem, legitimate problem at the border that has been a problem for a long time, there might be some motives behind that. Some reason to divert attention away from something like everyone's favorite candidate being backed by political powers that shouldn't be political. Where is this? Oh, we did that last time. So, yeah, there was that. I'm making sure I'm not missing anything. That's from last week. All right, so before we get into the thing about the border, I wanted to point at. I didn't mention earlier, but if you guys can't tell, that you can tell. But if you can't tell, the chat is on screen. So if you're here and you're watching, go ahead and comment in the chat and let us know your opinion about things. This is designed to be a conversation. Appreciate Matt and Ben commenting in. What do you guys think about it? Is it crazy conspiracy theory to think that there's a reason suddenly people are so interested in what's going on at the border and making such a big deal about it? Or did people just suddenly notice, even though it's been going on for years? And specifically, we're going to talk about the changes. Man, I need to move my monitor. I keep having to lean over to see Joe. Those happened over a month ago. So, yes, not Paul. Paul worked for Trump. So remember, like a couple of months ago when we were talking about shootings, school shootings, people, the epidemic of why is this not letting me? Hold on. Gotta unblock ads. Maybe I don't want to unblock ads. All right, fine. You happy now? The Washington Post is messing up my show because I can't get people to actually pay money for it. Alright, yes, I did unblock the ads. I'm sorry, hold on. So there was a shooting at a Walmart. Did you hear about the shooting at a Walmart in Washington State?
In Washington?
Yeah.
Oh, in the state?
In Washington State. There was a shooting at a Walmart this last week.
Oh, I've heard of so many shootings recently. I can't even.
Well, only one person died, and that was the shooter, because 3 different people in the parking lot pulled guns on him.
Yes, I did hear about. Well, three different people. I didn't hear about. I did hear about and.
3. I think 3 was something a witness said. You can't trust witness testimony. There were definitely 2. The police said there were 2 different people who pulled guns on the shooter when he was trying to carjack somebody and actually shot the guy whose car he was trying to steal twice, and then one of these armed civilians shot the man. A gunman who opened fire at a Walmart in Washington State, this is June 17th, and injured at least 2 people during carjacking attempts was fatally shot by one of 2 armed civilians on Sunday evening, according to police. The Thurston County coroner identified the dead suspect as Tim O'Day. Tim O'Day or Tim O'Day? It should be an apostrophe. It should be an apostrophe if it's O'Day. 44, though police said they were still piecing together the full story of what happened at the Tumwater, Washington Walmart. So police received a call of a possibly drunk driver who had, heading the wrong way on a main road near a high school. They sped to the scene. They found, they received a second call about a carjacking with shots fired. When officers arrived, they found a 16-year-old girl with unspecified non-life-threatening injuries, but no suspect. They quickly located the stolen car, but once again, no suspect. At about 5:30 p.m., they started getting numerous calls of shots fired in and around a nearby Walmart. Let's see. He entered the Walmart, fired shots at a display case, and then went into the parking lot where he attempted to carjack another vehicle, shooting the occupant in it at least twice. Apparently frustrated in his effort, the gunman then attempted a second carjacking. At that point, 2 armed civilians in the parking lot confronted the suspect, one of whom fatally shot the man. The police did not identify anyone involved or the type of weapons used, except to say they were handguns. The victim of the second carjacking attempt was in critical condition at Harborview Hospital. So yeah, once again, in a very different story. About somebody running around with a gun and shooting people, where he was trying to hijack a car, so he wasn't he wasn't there to shoot up the Walmart, but he was going to. It sounds like somebody who was on some kind of drug. Assault handguns. No, handguns are considered assault weapons these days. Depends on how they function, but. Oh yeah, somebody shoot us a word of the day. No, sorry, let me rephrase that. Somebody send us a word of the day. But the whole reason that people carry concealed weapons is for this reason. People, usually when there's a shooting, and the point is brought up, well, if only someone had a gun to stop this person, what's the argument you always hear for why somebody shouldn't be carrying a gun, a civilian, to try and stop a shooter?
I haven't heard an argument that a civilian shouldn't carry a handgun to stop a shooter. I
have heard very many, apparently...
I mean, some people say, you know, wait for the police, but...
Well, I've heard people say, well, you just want some other crazy person with a gun shooting randomly, thinking, like, who's to say that more bullets flying around isn't going to kill more people? Which is a horribly ignorant way of looking at it. You can't carry a concealed weapon without having training. And letting a person keep shooting rather than a civilian try and stop the situation, which is most of the cases I've ever seen, it's always been somebody was shooting around, a civilian pulled out a gun and stopped it. Not then there was a gunfight that ensued with 50 more shots being fired in random directions, and the civilian was shooting like this and just shot 7 children. Like, that's not how those ever not how they ever turn out. They turn out
not
like
when
this.
you just have 1 or 2 guys, yeah, who are assaulting.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean,
as opposed to what?
I mean, I don't think a gunfight would break out unless you had like some organized group or
the guy wasn't in like a clear line of sight or something. But
yeah.
But yeah, that was the defense of the school protection officer in Florida, where they said, well, if he went in there with his gun to try and stop this guy, who's to say more people wouldn't have got hurt? I think that's an absolutely ridiculous way of looking at it, but here's an example of how citizens with guns can stop crazy people with guns, which is the entire idea behind civilian concealed carry. Do we have a word of the day while I grab what's next?
Mm-hmm.
Here we are. Iaconic.
I think that's an L.
No, it's iaconic. Is it an L? I don't know. It looks like an I.
Is my tab muted?
I don't.
Oh, your computer is.
Days would look like an in-between version of the.
What was that?
I don't know.
That's creepy.
Let me mute everything.
Mute everything. Why on earth is it lowercase? Why is it a lowercase L?
Laconic.
Laconic.
Laconic. Concise,
it's
pithy.
lowercase because it's not
Terse?
proper.
Yeah, I suppose that's correct. It just looks funny sitting at the... Sorry. Try it again.
Laconic.
Who records these? Isn't it usually a like a computer voice or something?
Maybe it is, and you're just getting more.
That sounds like somebody who used it in a sentence and someone cropped it. You're being terribly laconic. You're like, oh, perfect. We don't have an audio for that one. Cropped it out.
I don't know. Maybe it was a problem word, so they had someone record it, so it sounded better.
Probably.
I like concise. I like conciseness.
Concision?
Concision.
Is concision
Sounds
a word?
painful.
Is concision a word? Don't even. I'm looking it up. Concise.
How would you spell that?
Same way you would.
Yep, it is.
Concision.
It means conciseness.
Yeah. Brevity or terseness.
So I guess it's a more concise word than conciseness.
Concision. Conciseness. Technically, it's the same amount of syllables.
No? 3 syllables? 3
Yeah,
syllables.
but
Well,
conciseness is a little tougher on it. Everybody say concision instead. Or laconic. Laconic. So there you go. There's word of the day. Thanks so much for sending that out our way. Why did that Why was that a word that was on your mind today? I don't know. Concision, not part of today's show.
Well, he did notice you had 2 T's in Music at Midnight.
What? I had 2 T's?
Mm-hmm.
Where? Music at Midnight?
Another show, Music at Midnight, Thursdays at, midnight. Music at Midnight has 2 T's.
Oh, in the description.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right, well, thank you. I didn't see that.
He read it in Dracula? That's where he got it from.
1998. And then it said 1998. No, false. Dracula was not in 1998.
100 years off there.
Okay, here's something you guys may not have seen. And I'd like to know what you guys think about this. There are several phone manufacturers who are adopting... hold on, stupid thing. Who are adopting the whole notch at the top of the phone to make the phone go all the way to the edge of the screen. The iPhone 10 has that little notch at the top because they can't get a camera to take a picture through an LED screen. So for some reason, which a friend of mine has the iPhone 10, and apparently what they do for most apps is they just black out those 2 sections beside the notch to make it look like a flat area, which kind of destroys the entire point. But several phone manufacturers,
picture. I don't
not
know.
Samsung,
I can't imagine it.
of what, the notch?
Yeah.
Okay, iPhone 10. That's weird that you. It was such a big deal before when it first came out. It looks like this. You see that? See how the screen goes up and around the darn thing?
Oh, yeah.
Why have screen there?
You can put notifications in there.
Well, you
more
can put
space.
the time on one side and your whether or not you're connected to Wi-Fi on the other. But your little notification icons, you can't. In fact, what it does is it gets rid of the option of having notification icons across the top of your screen. Because they can't go below it, and they can't go where the notch is. And so you are limited to only the time and like 2 icons. So I don't think it's a good idea. But a lot of other phone manufacturers are several. It looks like it's going to be a trend. Thanks, Apple. But there is a new trend that is actually possibly going to replace it. And that is not what I thought I was bringing up. Hold on.
That was
The
my
heck
screen.
just happened?
That's a photograph.
Oh, I closed both windows.
Someone captured the moon, Venus, and a meteor, Fireblast Meteor at the same time.
No. That's photoshopped. It's photoshopped.
Well, I can't prove it either way, but it's on weather.com.
Wait, that meteor's going straight through that cloud? Or is the cloud only dense enough right there?
Yeah, it's probably
that
dense
makes more
enough. I think it's behind.
That makes
Much
sense.
farther behind, yeah.
Gotcha. How did somebody do that?
I think they're probably just taking an exposure. Or maybe they just snapped a shot and it just happened to be right when they snapped it.
Maybe it's a long exposure.
I mean, it couldn't be that long. I mean, or else you would see a streak going all the way down. Unless that's exactly where
it burnt up and ended?
Yeah.
Maybe. So what's happening instead of an iPhone notch is pop-up cameras. Check this action out. It'll blow your mind. No, stop. Volume low. Check this out. What they do is they just...
I'm Dan from The Verge, and check this thing out.
Look at this.
So you're probably wondering what just happened there. So let's talk about it. This is Oppo's
Can you
new
make it
phone,
bigger?
the Find X.
Yeah.
Now, you may not be familiar with Oppo, but they're a big smartphone brand in China, and they're actually owned by the same company that owns OnePlus, which you probably are familiar with if you've seen this channel before. And this phone is their new flagship phone, which is going to be launched globally for the first time. And yes,
Look at
it'll
that.
be available here.
Oh, that's
Look at
what you
that.
meant.
in a bit.
Yes,
So let's talk about
pop-up
this phone here.
cameras.
So what you're seeing is a big 6.4-inch
Isn't that
display,
weird?
and it's going edge to edge.
It's cool.
with
It reminds me of
almost
those
like
old
a
cars,
So
those
in
old
order to
cars
build
where the
and
lights come
accommodate
up.
the camera, Oppo put the
Yeah.
camera in a motorized slide-out
Porsche
tray that pops
things
up when
like
you open
that.
the camera app and disappears when you close it. It's pretty trick. Now, in this camera tray are both the front camera and rear cameras, and there's some interesting things going on here. Now, the rear camera is a 16 megapixel and 20
That also
megapixel
solves
dual
a
camera
privacy
system.
issue.
Pretty similar to what we've seen with a bunch of dual cameras on
Yeah.
phones before. It does
Isn't that
portrait mode
interesting?
detection, all that kind of stuff. But the front camera is a
Too bad
25
never be-
megapixel
they'll
sensor,
never
and
be
it's
able
got
to solve
3D
that
face
with the
scanning
mic.
sensors in here.
Wait,
Not unlike
wait,
what you
wait.
see on
Phone
the
will
iPhone
always
10.
listen to you.
Face scanning sensors in here.
What did
on
he just
phones
say?
Before it does portrait mode effects and all that kind of stuff. But the front camera is a 25 megapixel sensor, and it's got 3D face scanning sensors in here, not unlike what you get on the iPhone 10. Now, those 3D scanners can do
Wait
things
a
like
second.
automatically beautify your image, which is very popular on a lot of phones from China, or it also works to log you in, so that when you turn on the phone and unlock it, the camera pops up, sees your face, and it logs you in. Now, the Find X does not have a fingerprint scanner on it. As you can see on the back here, there's no fingerprint scanner. There's no fingerprint scanner under the screen either, so it's basically relying on the camera
have
to
a big
log you
problem
in. But it
cleaning
does it
that
all
out
pretty
if it
quickly.
gets sand or
Oppo says that
something
this
in there.
camera can launch in as little as 0.5 seconds, which is pretty fast, as you can see. I'm doing it a bunch of times here. So then the screen itself, it's an OLED panel. It's got curved sides. You can see here,
Yeah.
It looks a lot like what you get on a Samsung
Moving
S9 or S9
parts,
Plus.
the
It's 1080
bane
pixels
of-
of resolution. Basically,
So
the phone
it's not,
itself kinda
it's not
looks to me
the,
like an S9 with
It's not the
slimmer
only
bezels,
camera
which
that's
is pretty cool.
trying this. But it would be one of the only phones that actually has moving parts. I don't know if you've noticed, but phones don't have any moving parts.
Unless I take my stylus out of my Note 3.
Does not count. That's not a moving part.
Yes,
That
it
is
is.
no, it is a hole inside it which you store something in.
But it
An
has a
SD
little
card-
it has a little clicky thing that
An
detects
SD card-
that will and it'll tell you if your pen's
Does
out
the
or
phone
not.
move it itself?
What, the clicky thing?
No. Yeah, is it motorized?
No.
Does it actuate anything? Phone doesn't actuate anything. That was my that was my point. Good to know. I don't,
Okay, what about the vibration?
yeah, that is a sorry, that's a big 24 megapixel camera. It's a big camera. Not big, but a lot of I don't know. What would you call that? That's a high-res camera.
It's a sales number.
Um,
That's what I would call it.
what, megapixels?
Yes.
What's wrong with high megapixels? You don't think that's accurate?
Well, there's more that goes into a camera sensor than megapixels. That's just something that, you can hang on an object and say, "Hey, look, this number is higher than that number."
Yeah, but it's not I don't know. Is it not? Do you think it's not accurate? Do you think if you took a picture with it, it wouldn't be that many megapixels? Because that's a measurable number.
No, it'll be that many megapixels, but there's more that goes into something. That, I mean, I'm sure they could just jump it up, but then it would be a super unacceptable quality instead of something that looks okay.
So kind of like 4K.
Yeah, there's something. I think there's
4K TVs that only run at like 15 hertz. It'll do 4K, but just at like
15.
really, really slowly.
30 hertz is terrible on a 4K display.
Exactly. So they're like, it'll look better if you run it at 1080p at like 60 hertz. Well, then why am I getting a 4K screen?
Or at least on a TV that's big enough to make use of 4K. Yeah, there's like what is it called? The contrast ratio or dynamic contrast or something. There's, that's pretty important. And
Which is why you need an OLED screen, so the blacks are blacker, because those pixels are literally off. When they're black, they're off. Where mostly the colors on an LED screen or an LCD screen, the color LEDs are off in the pixel, but the backlight is still backlighting it, which is why you get this charcoal gray effect on your screen in the dark parts of the video.
and the LED just means the backlighting is LED. The pixels are still LCD, liquid crystal.
Yes.
That was another sales thing. LED TVs.
I remember when those were new and everybody's like, I don't know what that means. LED, LCD, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I learned, and now I know.
Yeah,
So-
just sharper backlighting.
So, let's talk really quick about conversations about this whole border problem. Now, if you've been anywhere on social media, you see a lot of people complaining about the inhumane nature of removing parents from their children. Now, I'm not going to argue one point or the other on whether or not it is necessary for them to be removing parents from children, because there's a lot of minutia and a lot of nuance to that, and it all boils down to your basic worldview, and a lot of people don't even like that answer, but essentially it comes down to, do you think it is more important to follow the law strictly, or do you think it's more important to never ever separate parents from their children? I have seen many people, on my Facebook at least, anecdotally, saying things like you should never, there's never a reason to separate a parent from their children, which is, on its face, ridiculous. There are many reasons that you should separate parents from their children. It's just not common that that's the case.
Yeah, some people do actually believe in, like, very strongly about that. I've seen it.
Well,
like, no matter how bad the situation.
Well, and we're about to talk about this in a very specific case that speaks to the problem with this conversation. And yes, some people wholeheartedly believe that you shouldn't separate a parent from their children. But I would fully expect, if I were to break a serious enough law that I was incarcerated, that they would not take my children with me to jail. I really hope that wouldn't happen. But I would be separated from my children, and I would not think to myself, how could you do this to me? I would probably think to myself, how could I do this to my children? Now, there's a part of that debate that is, well, why would parents put their children in this situation by coming, instead of to ports of entry or what are those places called? Proper legal entry points where you can go up and you can say, I'm seeking asylum, and be processed properly. Instead, they go over the border in points of entry, not ports, points of entry. And that's when they are arrested for illegal entry into the country. Not people who are seeking asylum, people who would like asylum, but are crossing the border illegally in spots they're not supposed to cross the border. There is an argument to be made that these people are knowingly putting their children in the possible situation of being separated from them. Here is what the Washington Post had to say about that. It's unclear whether... Whoa, that's not... It's unclear whether 100% of adults are being prosecuted. Experts on the ground say there are not enough resources on the border to process all these cases. Trump administration officials say immigrants should show up at a port of entry, I was right, to request asylum if they want to avoid prosecution. But there's usually a big crowd, and people often get turned away at these entry points, according to a report from Texas Monthly. So what they're saying is, the Trump administration said if you do not want to be prosecuted, which is when the parents are tried in legal courts for the crime of crossing into the country illegally, not through a port of entry, then children cannot be incarcerated with the parents and therefore have to be put into a separate facility. The details of all of that are very vast and detailed. But the point is, if you don't want that to happen, Trump administration says, go to a port of entry. But the problem with that is there's usually a big crowd and people often get turned away. Implying that breaking the law and putting their children in the situation of possibly being removed from their parents is a viable option because it's difficult to actually get somewhere with with these ports of entry. Hold on. All right, so this is the same article from the Wall Street Journal, or Washington Post. Dang it, I think I said that wrong. I'll go back and check in a second. It says what they do provide is accommodations for children that the government could extend to parents if they wanted to, referring to the fact that when they're separating parents from children, yes, they cannot incarcerate children with their parents, but what they could do is they could just not incarcerate the parents, and then there wouldn't be a problem. So essentially their problem with you can't separate parents from children, and they say, all right, what do you want us to do? Put the children in jail with the parents? They say, no, you should just forgive the crime of entering the country illegally and free everybody, which is kind of the whole point. That it's the whole reason we have Border Patrol in the first place. It's the reason we have ports of entry. So from those quotes, apparently it seems like let me pull it up so I'm not wrong. Wall Street Journal. Washington Post. I was close. What the Washington Post is saying is that not only can you not separate parents from children, the only viable option, because children must be released from detention facilities within 20 days under the Flores consent decree. But none of these legal developments prevent the government from releasing parents along with children. So what they're saying is because they come in with children, they should not be held for more than 20 days because they can't hold the kids for more than 20 days. And rather than separate them, legal adults who made illegal decisions should be released with their children because that's what would be fair. Now, I'm not arguing that the zero tolerance at the border policy is a good policy. And I'm not saying, yes, maybe bank robbers, Matt Ondrzejczyk says, maybe bank robbers should start taking their children to work every day. Children to work day. I assume he means every day. Yes, the strict enforcement at the border is causing more parents to be separated from children. But what it is doing is it is simply prosecuting people who break the law. And the byproduct of that is children end up separated from parents. Joe, do you think parents are culpable at all in this when they try to cross the border illegally with their children?
Illegally?
Illegally. Crossing the border in ports that are not ports of entry. They don't come up and they say, hey, can we come in? We need asylum. Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. These are just crime-ridden countries where it's not safe for any human being. We need to come into America because there's nowhere else for us to go. Not these people. People sneaking into the country and being caught by Border Patrol. Do you think these parents are culpable at all for being removed from their children?
Can you rephrase that?
Do you think parents have a responsibility? Do you think it's parents' fault? Do you think the parents hold any blame for what's happening to them and their children?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
So do you think that... okay, so I just gave my opinion on all of that. So what do you think about the parents going into... the courts, the criminal system, and the children being separated from them? Should we not prosecute the parents? Should we hold them together in the same spot? What do you think should be happening? Or is the situation right now just fine?
So you're saying what would I do?
Yeah, well, ideal situation.
Change the law.
I mean, I see a lot of people saying this isn't right. What do you think is right? What should we do? Because we just saw Washington Post say, why don't you just release the parents and the kids, and they can be together, and they can be in America, and we just don't prosecute them for illegal entry. I know it's a tricky. I know it's a tough question, but it is a trap. It is not intended to be. But that's a tough question. I hear a lot of people saying, we want this situation to change. But they don't say how.
How was it done before?
It's always been done this way, but under different... It's always been done this way. It just hasn't been done to this extent. What changed was a zero-tolerance policy. What they did in the past is they would catch parents and they would who had children, and they would either hold them in... and not They would process them for whether or not they can be legally accepted in the country, but they would not criminally prosecute them for illegal entry, unless they, there were other prosecutable crimes. But many times there was what they would call catch and release, where they would catch people crossing the border and they would either just push them right back over the border, or sometimes they would just let them go and into the United States and say, we'll come back on this court date and we'll decide whether or not you get to stay. At which point, I think it was 40 or 42% of them did not show up for their court dates and just disappeared. Which is where that 2,000, or however many thousand, the FBI lost this many kids. How could that happen? It's because they just sent them off to families or relatives and said, we'll come back on your court date and we'll decide whether you can stay. And then they followed up and couldn't find them because they all disappeared, because they all didn't want to come back for their court date. That's what they've been doing in the past. They hadn't been enforcing border law to the extent that they are. And what changed was in sometime earlier this year, Jeff Sessions announced a change in policy where they said, if you try to come into the country illegally, you will be prosecuted for illegal border crossing, in which case you will be put into a legal justice system, in which case, if you have a child, they will be separated from you and you will be tried for a crime, which entering the country illegally is. So no more speeding ticket warnings, essentially.
You mentioned something about 20 days, and I forgot what it was.
A child can only be held for 20 days at a... What facility was that?
What happens after that?
They are placed with either... they are sent to Health and Human Services to be placed with either a relative in the country or a close... I forget the exact listing. People that would be proper... that would be in charge of these children who are family members or close friends of the family or something like that. They would find a proper guardian for them to stay with elsewhere, which takes a while because they have to actually vet who these kids are going to. So while the parents are being prosecuted through a legal system, for apparent crimes, the children are held for only a short amount of time, and then they have to be placed, at least sent to Health and Human Services, which is a separate facility, while they are trying to place them with someone who can watch over them so that they don't just sit there in a cage. So,
yeah, I guess my thing is I would, I guess the biggest concern with that would be human trafficking.
That was
yes. How well do they vet?
Mm-hmm.
How well do they vet that, and what happens after? What happens after the parents are tried?
Usually, what happens is when they're convicted, they are sentenced to time served, which essentially they just mean, all right, you're convicted, you're guilty, and you're going to spend however many days you just spent in our system. So they just release them immediately. Their sentence was what they already spent incarcerated waiting for trial, which is what time served means. And they usually are deported. They're sent back to their country. In which case their kids are either still in the facility or they're sent. In which case, if they were, they would be sent back to the parents. And if they weren't, they may have already been placed with an uncle or a cousin or something in the United States or a proper home of some kind. And that's when parents have a hard time finding where their children have gone to. And it's not handled as well as it should be at all. But I want to show this this PolitiFact article real quick, and this kind of goes to the heart of why these conversations go as poorly as they do. So Ted Cruz made a statement on, I think, a radio show, or it was an interview, radio in Dallas. He said there's actually a court order that prevents keeping the kids with the parents when you put the parents in jail, which is when what we were just talking about, when they're actually being tried for a crime, and you put the parents in the legal criminal system and they are put in jail. You can't put kids in with the parents. So this is listed as mostly false, that statement. So Ted Cruz says child-parent separations at the border tied to a court order. Now, there's a lot in here to try and make their case. And go ahead, go read it. He's referring to a a 1997 agreement. We sought detail about the described order. Maria Jeffrey in Cruz's Senate office told us by email that Cruz was referring to a 1997 court agreement between advocates for unaccompanied minors detained by immigration authorities and the Justice Department. It says, we didn't spot language in a January 1997 agreement in Flores versus Reno that explicitly bars children from staying with their parents who have been detained in jail. There's no such provision in the agreement, immigration lawyers told us. Absolutely not, Denise Gilman, who heads an immigration clinic at the University of Texas Law School, said by email. And conclusion also aired by Peter Shea of the Los Angeles-based Center for Human Rights, which was involved in the litigation that led to the argument. So they're saying that not that children can stay with their parents in jail, but that this agreement doesn't say anything about that. Let me go down here where it says, Jeffrey wrote that Cruz's point is simple and 100% correct. When the parents are detained, the Flores agreement compels placing the child with another family member or in less restrictive setting. It says, Sue alerted us to another arguably, there you are, stupid fly, influential factor. In 2008, a 2008 law requires immigration officials holding a minor to transfer the minor to the care of Health and Human Services within 72 hours after determining that such a child is unaccompanied alien. After determining that such child is an unaccompanied alien child. The government has options. This is their problem with his statement. They're saying that, let's see, what actually happens, Gilman, who is this lawyer they were referring to earlier, is that parents and children are detained in a border facility and children are taken from parents while the family is at the facility before criminal charges are brought. Children are taken into custody and away from the facility by refugee settlement resettlement staff. Only then, Gilman said, are the parents criminally prosecuted before being given a sentence of time served, which really is just the time spent at the border facility. Next, Gilman said parents are returned to the border facility, but the child is already gone. At that point, the parents are typically sent to an adult immigration detention facility to spend several months, even if they're successful in passing an asylum screening interview and getting released on bond, Gilman wrote. So Sue called Cruz's claim technically correct, but misleading in that it leaves the inaccurate impression that the government, by policy and law, has no choice but to separate children from parents. So what they're saying is what he said in this statement here is true, but the implication is that they don't have any other options. But as we talked about earlier, if they're going to actually enforce the law, they actually don't have options. The option is to not enforce the law. Their other option is to not have a zero tolerance policy. So what he's not saying there's no way on earth that we could not separate parents from children. He's saying if we're going to follow the law and if we're going to prosecute people for crimes of entering the country illegally, then we cannot put children in jail with parents, which is what he said, which is what they said. I don't believe, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that's a mostly false statement. Even if it is misleading, I don't think it's mostly false. And the reason they say it's mostly false is because it gives the impression that, or it implies. So the inference you take from that is false. Cruz said a court order prevents keeping the kids with the parents when you put the parents in jail. There's an element of truth to Cruz's interpretation of the law requiring children to be placed in at least restrictive settings. But that statement, in and of itself, is not inaccurate. So why would they give? Do you think it deserves a mostly false rating?
Beats me.
Well, I tried to read as much of that as I could without getting too deep into it. But they just stated the exact words of what he said are true. But here's the problem with the conversation. Nobody wants facts. They just want impressions, opinions, motives, these less than specific things are what people have problems with when it comes to the discussion about this. Ted Cruz saying, well, there actually is a court order saying we can't keep these people together when they're in jail. Okay, well, yeah, there's other options. The Washington Post said you could just not, you could just release everybody, and then that wouldn't be a problem. But they're speaking and thinking in a completely different context than Ted Cruz is. He's speaking in a, if we're going to follow the law and prosecute people that break the law, and then he has his statement, and they say, well, we're not starting from the same base. You're implying that we're going to enforce the law. And that's where the disagreement lies, as we just saw with the Washington Post. You do have options. You could not enforce the law. You could let illegal immigrants go. So mostly false because it contains an element of truth but ignores critical facts that would give a different impression. I think that is completely an uncharitable interpretation of what he said, but that's the point. Other people think that mostly false, it's entirely false because it implies certain things. And that's where we get a huge disconnect in the conversation, and that's where you get people imputing motives like the wording of an article I read said, there's this law, this loophole that allows people, it allows the Trump administration to remove parents from children. As if they wanted to, they were looking for a loophole. How can we tear children from their parents? Here's a law, we'll throw them in jail, and we're not allowed to put the kids in jail with them. That way we'll have to separate them, was the implication. That was the unstated implication of their statement. Kind of like what they didn't like with this one, where they were implying that Trump wanted so bad to tear children away from their parents. Well, yesterday, I don't know if you heard, but yesterday Trump signed a... I don't know who that is, but I don't think capitalism is going to collapse in our lifetimes. Socialism, though, you never know. Oh, wait. Yeah, you do. It's been tried, failed. I'm not going to point to Venezuela. There's way more examples than that. So, what was I saying before whoever that is interrupted? Can I click on this account, see who that is? So the problem with the conversation is motives that are being attributed to people because there is never a reason to separate parents from kids. And so starting from that base point, anything that someone says going, well, actually there's a legal reason where we should do that. No, there is no reason. And if this law says you have to do that, you could always just not follow the law. You're saying if parents go to jail, they can't be together with their kids. Why not just not put them in jail? You didn't say that was an option. Oh, jeez. I don't know either. Say it. Say it. There it goes. That's all right. Spam in the chat. Oh, no. He's taking up all the chat space. Hey, check and make sure that's appropriate. If not, ban this fool. I don't know who that is, but I like him. All right. So that's pretty much been my analysis of this conversation. Is there are people who say, I don't like the sound of kids crying. I don't like people being removed from their mothers and fathers. This whole thing is unnecessary. And there's some truth to that. I don't like that either. I don't like when parents are removed from children. I would not like to be separated from my children. But, like I said, if I committed a crime, I would expect that to happen. And the feeling of, well, can't we find some way to let this go? You know people are going to break the law. You know they're going to bring their children with them when they illegally enter the United States. So can't we just provide for people who don't feel like waiting in line and might be rejected for asylum? Can't we just give them a free pass because they came over the border illegally and we don't want to separate them from their children? And that's a completely different worldview, then the law is the law. You know what you're doing when you break the law. Life is tricky in lots of places. There are probably 12 different places in this country where we could look and see crying children being removed from their parents, or children having their parents shot in their houses at night in American cities from drug and gang violence, and get a lot of people really upset about that and demand that the president sign an executive order somehow fixing crime in Detroit or Chicago. And the sad thing is, I can't, I'm not even reading this. I don't think, I'm not sure I'm going to have the time, but I appreciate all of your input. I think. But the difference is, you can't point to a specific group of children and say, these children are suffering. You can't respond with, yeah, lots of kids are suffering. Even though that's the truth, that is not a good response. It doesn't, no one's going to go, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. What was I thinking? Lots of kids are suffering. Who cares? No one's going to think that way. And so, I wonder, and I don't know if you saw yesterday, Trump signed an executive order saying, children must stay with parents. Also, we're not changing our zero tolerance policy. Stop coming into the country illegally with your children. This is going to keep happening. But we're going to keep kids with their parents as best we can. So, I don't know if that appeased anyone. It didn't seem to. I don't know if that'll change anything in the short term. It's probably going to take a while before any of that can actually affect what's going on down there. But even if he fixed all of this tomorrow, next time the IG report comes out, where do you think the press is going to point at crying children and say, "Isn't this Trump's fault?" Could be lots of places. Because unfortunately the world is tough, and there are lots of upset. There are lots of places where children are paying the price for adults' poorly run civilization. Any final thoughts, Joe? Are you reading this? Are you trying to read this? I don't blame you if you're not. I just was curious. You are not on.
My final thoughts are on my screen.
Oh, okay. People bought $38 hot dog water. I'm sorry, I thought I could get through that without laughing.
I knew
Let me try again. People bought $38 hot dog water set to support lost, and they were in for a rude awakening. Seriously, there's a hot dog in the water? No. Okay, what insider? This is gotta be. I can't scroll. This has got to be fake. Did this actually happen?
Yes.
Where did this actually happen?
Probably on
Vancouver.
the other side of the U.S.
Yeah, sold at a festival in Vancouver. Isn't that British Columbia, or is there another Vancouver in Washington?
There is Vancouver in Washington, but actually, I didn't check to see. It's funny, though. Anyway, it's all about the packaging.
It's both.
So,
Vancouver is in Canada and the United States. Yeah. It looks just like one of those zero water.
Or raw water, which is dangerous.
Oh, yeah, I remember. We talked about that last year. People were like, drink raw water. It has all those minerals from the earth that the earth wants you to have so bad. So bad is right. Ugh, why would anyone? Hot dog. You can make your own. You know what you need hot dogs, you need
Unfiltered water,
and you need a bottle. You need to dig a hole, a deep hole, and throw a hot dog in the hole and scoop the hot dog up with the water. Oh jeez. Well, there you go, folks. The world is suffering in so many places. Vancouver is no exception. What? Like American kids being saddled with a... No, see, no one cares about that.
It's all about the packaging.
Because it's not immediate. Yeah. It's not immediate at all. It's yeah, it's like, and I hesitate to bring this up, but I'm going to anyway because it's 15 minutes after. I don't think anybody's watching anymore, right? Okay. It's like Bill Burr. His bit about it's never okay to hit a woman. And he's like, never though? Like ever? But like, what if you come home? What if you come home from work and she's drowned 2 of your kids and she's about to drown the third? Can I pop her then, or do I have to just go, oh well? Silly, absurd circumstance. But it's also an absurd thing to say. There is never, ever a reason to separate parents from their kids. There is, and you can debate whether or not each specific circumstance warrants it. It is very, very unlikely that these circumstances at the border can't be dealt with in a better way, or we can't make a better system for handling them that removes the removal from parents problem, but that makes it better. That's not Daniel Tosh. He also does that, but Bill Burr does that bit. That is Bill Burr's bit. I promise you it is. I'm being challenged on this.
No, we have these huge battles. You know what the maddest she ever got at me was? One time she was watching this show. It was like a poor excuse for The View. And they started talking about domestic violence, right? For the 9 millionth time this year, they're talking about domestic violence. Just in case, you know, you didn't get the memo. You know? Evidently, you know, just some people didn't get it. It's not okay to slam your wife's head into the cupboard drawers because she didn't dry the can opener off properly. You know? It's gonna fucking rust, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. It's Bill Burr.
Beep.
Yeah, get on that button there, Joe. This is his bit about.
I gotta admit, I got a little childish. I did. I got a little childish. You know, I was just thinking about my relationship. I'm like, this is the relationship I'm in. You just gonna do whatever the hell you want to do, right? And fuck me. Fine.
I have no idea what part it's in, but it's in there. I promise. It's that one. Bill Burr. No reason to hit a woman. How women argue. Full. There you go. Look it up. I've been proven right, much to my dismay. But yes. So he stole it from Tosh? No, he did. Nobody would joke steal from Tosh. It's not worth stealing. Nobody bends over to pick up a penny. I'm just saying. So anyway, yeah, that's my thought on it. People are approaching the situation from two completely different reasons, and they're imputing terrible motives on the other. Because either you are completely heartless and you don't care about parents being removed from their children, and next thing you know, this is going to be happening to American citizens. And you know who else removed parents from kids and took them to facilities to shower? That's right, the Nazis. And they were gassing them, which is not applicable, but people act like it is. That's a poor argument. That's not a good way to get to any sort of solution on this. Inversely, you can't just it's just two completely different worldviews. The law should be kept. People know what they're doing. People should be held accountable. But think of the kids. Yes, but the parents should have known what they were getting into. Yes, but have some mercy and compassion. Yes, but we have to uphold the rule of law. Yes, but do we always have to? So it's differing priorities, and it's very easy to demonize the other to make yourself feel better. But don't do that. Can you imagine if there was just a rule on Facebook where moderators would go around and delete any post that wasn't, you know what, I see your point. I disagree with it, but I understand why you hold that opinion. They mandate that people say it. Whether you believe it or not, people have to say it so that people can scroll through Facebook and go, I feel heard and understood. Disagree with me all you want, but I feel heard and understood. I had a disagreement, no. Oh, I know. I saw this. I had a disagreement with a friend.
Can you make that more laconic?
I can. If you're going to disagree with someone, do not impute motive. That's the biggest problem I see, is people saying, that person obviously is evil. That person obviously wants certain terrible things to happen. Obviously has no heart. But people have different priorities depending on your personality type and your view of the world. That's all. He did not. I had a discussion with a friend on Facebook today, and he said people need to stop arguing about this. People are reading way too many biased opinions and getting false information. I've done a lot of research. You should do a lot of research. Here's what I have found. And then went and listed a bunch of talking points, some of which I disagree with, and some of which are very one-sided, leaving out, you know, they were all from a specific point of view, which I can understand a person having. Didn't tell a whole story. And I said, well, what are the sources? What are your sources for this? And he said, I don't want to give sources because if I do, people will just take my word for it and they won't do their own research. So he wanted to list the findings of his research and not say where he got any of them. I said, but if you tell people what your sources are, people can then vet those sources for themselves and either come to the same conclusion you did or explain why they disagree with it. But he felt he was empowering people by giving them his opinion, but not citing any sources for the facts that he stated. I take issue with that, sir. That sounds like an attempt to have an opinion. It's like when Lois Lerner said, I'm going to give a brief statement. I didn't do it, and everybody who thinks I did it is wrong, but then I plead the fifth. He wants to have an opinion and take part in the discussion, but wants to take part in the discussion, but doesn't want to actually have to defend his position. I legitimately wanted to know where he got his information from, because I've been looking into this for several days, and a lot of what? Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah. A lot of what he was saying was either things that I had come across and were proven to be semi-accurate or inaccurate altogether, and I was curious where he had found his information. Wouldn't give it. Said, well, people need to go find this out for themselves, and I'm not going to give them any sort of idea where I got mine from. Doesn't seem like a very healthy discussion tactic to me. Yes. Imputing motives. What's up?
Say, this is a side note, but I figured out how Ben was able to post so much stuff. He posted about 3 times as much as the entire previous chats worth of chat without getting chat banned for spamming.
Slow mode wasn't on.
Huh?
Oh, sorry. Continue.
Oh, well, he had used different accounts.
Oh, did he really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Used
Somebody knows
different
what
accounts with the same name
what
and
they're doing.
Same name and
you know what that means, though?
Picture.
That means we got twice as many views. Win for us. Capitalism prevails. Yeah, there's a slow chat feature where each person can only type like once every minute or something like that. I forget. Interesting chat today.
Yes.
What happened? What?
Yes, we had someone with a political message just overwhelm the chat using at least ironic. 2 accounts
it was being
under the same name.
Had to have been. But yeah, that was the extent of my Facebooking over this issue, because people want to. I don't even know. It seems like a strong desire to make themselves feel better. Why do you think that is, Joe? Why do you think people post such strong opinions on Facebook?
Because they have them.
Yeah, I mean, I do too, but I just can't stand putting them on Facebook and then watching people misconstrue them and impute motives to me, because it doesn't seem... I used to do that years ago. It just doesn't seem the least bit constructive. I do it here instead.
Well, maybe they're not concerned with the people that incorrectly interpret their message. They know it's going to get to somebody, so they'll have made a difference.
But do they? Do you think so? Because I'm cynical enough to think people don't actually want to try and inform or change any kind of minds or spread. It seems like most of what I see on Facebook is people going, I'm on the right side of history, and if you disagree with me, you're a Nazi. That's right, I'm on this side. How's it going, other non-Nazis? I'm with you.
You have a big enough group of people. You share something that's going to influence at least, you know.
I'm not saying it won't. I'm saying it seems like that's not the motive, or people would be a lot nicer about it. I'm saying if you're that
could just be
heated-
a vent.
Yeah,
if you're that heated, you know, Facebook's a vent.
That's true.
I need to get it out. I need people to listen. I know
Can you
someone's going to listen.
Can you disable comments on a Facebook
On a post?
Yeah.
I know you can do that in Facebook groups. I'm not sure about. You can revoke particular people's commenting rights overall.
I'm gonna have to try that.
I actually have a Facebook list. It's literally named like Facebook commenting rights have been revoked, and you know anyone in that list, the security settings. You know, I just put that in the security settings. They do not have commenting rights. So you know, if I find someone who's very troublesome.
Well, I'm thinking about how different it would be if people just like, specifically on Facebook. I don't see a whole lot of productive discourse on Facebook. Maybe I need better friends. But if you could just post it and have people like thumbs up, thumbs down, angry, heart, and that was the only interaction other people could have with it specifically, directly. I wonder if that would, because like you said, people just venting. I think you're right. I think that might have a lot to do with why people do what they do on Facebook. People see what's happening, they get upset about it, and they post on Facebook and they go, I'm kind of upset about this thing. Which is kind of a different thing than when they post the pictures of cartoon Trump snatching up kids in the night and gobbling them up.
Do you see that video?
That's obviously not meant to like cross bridges or bridge divides.
Facebook message.
The video you sent me, I did not get a chance to look at it. What's it about? Describe it briefly.
Well, just look at the thumbnail.
Hold on.
The Space Force.
Space Force. It won't let me look at the thumbnail. It just a theme song for the Space Force? Songify. Oh, schmo yo-ho.
Yeah. So anyway.
All right, I'm gonna put this in the chat. Anybody who wants to see schmo yo-ho, auto-tune the news.
No, don't listen to it. It'll get into your head and
anybody
annoying.
Who wants this
it's
in
annoying.
Your head,
it's annoying.
You want annoying schmo yo-ho. If you guys don't know, they're the ones who pioneered the auto-tune the news clips, such as did give away, or ain't nobody got time for that. Wasn't that a song? Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ooh yeah.
I remember the Backing Up song.
What?
Some lady on the news was talking about just backing up. You don't?
I don't remember that one.
No.
Space Force theme song. We are way over time, but Amor, I really want your opinion on this. Your changes were not saved? Angle brackets aren't allowed in your description? It's an arrow. How am I supposed to go? All right, try this. There you go. Left arrow here. Can my changes be... your changes are being saved? All changes saved. There's the Space Force thing. Controversy incoming. No, like... Okay, so the whole purpose here is... I have strong opinions, and I guarantee some of them, very few in very small ways, aren't from every angle they possibly could be. I would like a different opinion that isn't Trump likes to snatch up kids and eat them in the night. On what we should do if kids are being removed from parents.
Farther and farther away, and I think maybe I should faint.
Oops. Sorry.
Thanks, Joe. Is there... When parents... Let me see if I can do this more succinctly this time. When parents break the law and enter the country illegally, not at ports of entry, but crossing the border with their children, knowing that they, if caught, will be legally prosecuted. And the children end up being separated from the parents because the parents are put in jail where the children cannot be. What can we do about that other than not enforce the law? Laconically. In a laconical manner. Laconical? Laconic. In a laconic way. Type out like a 50,000 word. No, but the positions I see most often are, let's not enforce the law to this extent. And no, there's too much.
Oh, you saw it. You can see it.
Yes, I can. The positions are, why are we enforcing the law with a zero tolerance policy anyway? Shouldn't we be more lenient on parents with kids? The other opinion being, well, parents know what they're doing. We have laws. We should enforce them. People should not get special treatment. System created to have a livable detention environment. So, keeping the parents with the kids while they're incarcerated, while they're being detained, would be preferable in your opinion. Where families could be, hold on, I can't see this. Could be held until either meet requirements for citizenship or or have arrangements to go back to their home country. Sounds reasonable, but you would need to have. It's so complicated. Like, the reason we separate kids from parents is because we have to hold everybody in like group places, and it is dangerous for kids to be staying in large groups with large groups of adults. So it is safer for kids to be staying in large groups of kids supervised. And it's safer for that rather than just parents and families and kids all just piled into the same spot. Some sort of family case management program for that, yes, would probably cost as much as the process we do now. It would take a lot to implement. I agree. Something should change. I hope something will change. The Trump letter that executive order that he signed saying we should do something about this. Hopefully that will change soon. I have a really... The tricky part is it's very easy to paint this in a broad brush of everyone who crosses the border illegally with children are just families running from gang violence, and we should not treat them as criminals, even though they technically are. It's far more complex than that. So, more facilities for keeping families who are just trying to seek asylum together so the parents and the children don't get lost from each other. I think that's a great goal to work toward. I think where the kids, a lot of where the kids are staying, I think is a military base, a big hangar on a military base is where those big cages they showed were. What about in the interim, before they set all that up? Do you think there's ever a reason to remove parents from children? That's a silly question. I just answered it. Easy. Just have them tell the truth when they cross the border. Oh. There you go. True reason they're crossing. They will acquiesce. Absolutely. All right. Well, if I wanted your answer to that question, it would have been more polite to wait till I had you on a call or something like that. But I appreciate you trying to type in the text as much as you can to answer a complex question. Assign caseworkers, like CPS thing. They kind of do. They kind of have that as a thing, but what ends up happening is when they're processing these people, and they can't hold the kids for any longer than they're not supposed to hold the kids for any longer than 20 days. They have to then try to place them with somebody, and the parents are in jail at that point. And so they have to find a better place to put them because they can't just keep them while these parents are being processed through the legal system for breaking the law. Which is, if I could just be candid for a minute, this is kind of a silly conversation that we're having from a certain perspective of, but these poor people who broke the law, it's so weird. You know, the year we're living in where, well, they broke the law, but they didn't break a real important law. I don't know. Oh, wait, you're on your phone? Well, more kudos to you. I appreciate that. No, of course she doesn't swipe. No one swipes but you, Joe, and no one uses a trackball. Are you kidding? No one uses a trackball, and no one uses
I'm not using
swipe.
a trackball right now.
Yeah, but you're not using swipe right now either. You're not.
I do when I'm on my phone.
I know. Joe's ridiculous.
Plenty of people use it.
I still have your memes up. Let me explain. No, there's too much.
I can go back to the flying suitcase.
Let me sum up. Swiping is superior. Swipe master race. No. Yes. You do not swipe. There is no more. There's no. I'm never going to believe that. I would have seen you swiping. I've never seen it happen. Ever.
I'm sure it's only logical that he would switch to it when he's seen its superior ways. That's just how he goes.
I have seen its superior ways. And I don't. I just can't handle it. I miss. I get jittery fingers.
Well, that's the nice thing about swiping. You don't have to get it exactly.
Oh no!
I miss like just typing. Right. Like my fingers are too.
I will try it again. How about that? I will give it a try. I'll try it for 2 whole days, and if I just can't handle it, then that'll be it. All right, so
you'll report on it next week.
Yeah, I will report on it next week. I'll let you guys know how it went. We'll do a little tech review. Is swiping superior? Can he change my mind? I'm pretty stubborn, so if he does, it must be. Personnel correct. Yes. All right. So I appreciate you guys, everybody, coming in and being in the chat. Sorry you were late, Amor Pizza. It's weird that I'm apologizing for you being late, but shame you missed it because the conversation we just had just now, we already had 3 times. So happy to have it again since you showed up. Next week, hopefully, this will be completely sorted out. It'll be in the back of everyone's mind, and we'll be talking about the next crazy thing.
What's the next crazy thing?
I don't know. Suitcases flying.
It's actually just a satellite.
No.
But,
wait. Flying suitcase?
It looks like a suitcase. But just this is taken from the ISS.
Say flying suitcase?
Because it looks like one. That's why it's funny. It looks like a suitcase or an old TV. It's just a satellite, but it's just funny because it's just like, hey, look what you can see.
Wait, that's a satellite?
Yeah.
Why? Is it broken? Or is that what it's supposed to look like?
That's what it's supposed to look like.
It looks like
it might be one of them CubeSats.
Because that's a thing everyone knows about. What the heck is a CubeSat?
It's like a tiny. It's like the small cube-shaped satellite.
It looks like a Vive satellite.
You mean it looks like that's what it is, or it actually looks like one?
It looks like. It makes me think of like a Vive.
It's like a Vive design.
If you were to take one of these Vive Lighthouse covers off
and open it up,
there's no pictures with the cover off. It's a product.
I'm sure you can
page.
find disassembled.
Yeah, it looks like that, which is funny.
So it's like, I mean, that's basically a computer, right?
Yeah, but I would think it's in space. I know, but I'd think it'd have wings or those big like.
No, I mean the Vive thing.
Satellites. Oh no, yeah, probably.
Yeah, I found a picture of it.
That's weird.
Well, sort of.
And there you go. It looks just like a satellite flying through the air in multiple parts. All right.
Yeah,
All right, that's a good enough. That's a good enough place to leave that off.
Yeah.
Yes. Sadly, I missed it. Hopefully, my life aligns better next week. Hopefully, your life does align better next week. Moral of the story is don't comment on Facebook posts. Thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley, anger, that's all you get. You can't argue with that. You can just show your opinion. I disagree.
I
I
comment
do agree.
all the time.
I don't comment.
Comment sections. That's just where
Is that where you hang out?
it's where I interact with humanity.
Why would you subject yourself to comment section humans?
Because I love to know what people are thinking.
But you don't know if someone actually thinks what they say they're thinking.
Most people put their actual thoughts in comment sections.
Do you believe that those were Ben's actual legitimate thoughts?
Are you talking about
Or do you
Ben with
think he
the
was-
communist symbol?
Yeah,
on
or
his-
do you think he was trolling? Because I think he was trolling.
No, I think that's his actual legitimate cause that he's trying to.
Nope.
That is a stinking long spiel for a troll or a troll joke.
What are you talking about? No, that's exactly what a troll does. You don't set up multiple accounts like that to try and convince people of your Nah, come on. No, it's total troll. I have a friend who posts socialist memes all the time as a joke because they're socialist and it's funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with those emojis, I mean. Yes.
See, look at this. This is Pete we had on the show a while ago. When you at the photo shoot, but you can't stop thinking about Karl Marx. What? He made that himself. That's Pete in the picture.
Okay.
See, but he's not Marxist. That's the joke. That's why it's funny. Are you using Windows ME? What was that? You got Windows 7 on there. Okay.
No. Where did you get ME from? You know how long it's been since I've had that?
It was like circles. I don't
It's
remember
like
which
more
one had
than
circles. Was
10
that Windows 7?
Yeah, it's Windows 10.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, it's Windows 7.
Oh, it sounded like you said 10 both times. Alrighty then. One of these days, we're just gonna clear our schedule and get a lot of caffeine in us and go for like 3 hours. I don't know how these podcasts do it. No, seriously, some shows will go for like 3+. The Morning Kumite goes for 6 hours quite often. At least it did before it went off the air. Alrighty then. Well, next week we're going to be talking about whatever goes crazy next week. Do follow us on Twitter. My Twitter handle is down below. If there's something you want us to talk about on the show, do tweet at us. I do check it. I do see it. And I'll definitely bring it up next week. But we're here every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Hopefully you are too. Tonight I will be doing my music stream. It is also linked below. I do that at midnight every Thursday night / Wednesday morning. It's Wednesday. Wow, that's the way my brain works. Friday morning. So I take requests for that as well. Whatever topic you want me to talk about while I'm playing smooth jazz, just let me know. But we will see you guys next week. Please do subscribe and click that little bell that says, I would like to know when they're on the air. That way you will know when we're on the air.
99% of the time.
No, it will send you an alert. It alerts everyone all the time. Without fail. Without fail. You get push notifications. And since we're only on the air one time a week, you don't get inundated. You don't regret it. It's like when you sign up for like Fry's Electronics. You type it in to like get an order quickly, and then they just start emailing you every day. Buy yourself a new TV. You deserve it. I get those from Best Buy all the time. Treat yourself, because you've been doing great. You have a great job.
Treat yourself.
Max out that credit card. There's no stress in your life. You need some. Go start accruing some interest. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
I couldn't find the one that I actually wanted, but that's good. Good enough.
Come on. Well, close enough.